Welcome back to the channel everyone. Today we're diving into the financial results of one of India's key players in the banking space, specifically the small finance bank sector.
That's right. We're looking at AU Small Finance Bank Limited, or AUSFB. They've been around since 1996, started their banking journey in April 2017, and have grown to become India's largest small finance bank. Plus, they recently completed their merger with Fincare Small Finance Bank, which makes these results particularly interesting.
Absolutely. So they've released their audited financial results for the fourth quarter and the full financial year ended March 31st, 2025. The board approved these results on April 22nd, 2025.
And a key point to remember, as AUSFB themselves note, is that the financial year 2025 numbers are on a merged basis, reflecting the Fincare merger, which was effective from April 1, 2024. This means direct comparisons with the previous financial year 2024 might not be perfectly apples to apples, as financial year 24 might represent the pre-merger entity or adjusted figures. We'll keep that context in mind.
Good point. Let's jump into the headline numbers then. How did they fare on income for the full year and the last quarter, considering that merged basis?
Okay, looking at the merged performance highlights from their press release, for the full financial year 2025, net interest income or NII grew significantly. It came in at 8,012 crore rupees, which is up a strong 55% year-over-year compared to 5,157 crore rupees in financial year 2024.
Wow, 55% NII growth is substantial, even considering the merger impact. How did the last quarter look?
The fourth quarter of financial year 2025 also showed strong NII growth. It stood at 2,094 crore rupees, up 57% year-over-year from 1,337 crore rupees in the fourth quarter of financial year 2024.
Strong top-line growth there. What about operational profitability? Can we look at something like EBITDA or perhaps a proxy like PPOP?
Exactly. The press release highlights the pre-provisioning operating profit, or PPOP, which is a good indicator before accounting for loan provisions and taxes. For the full financial year 2025, PPOP surged by 86% year-over-year to reach 4,581 crore rupees, compared to 2,466 crore rupees in financial year 2024.
86% PPOP growth. That's even higher than the NII growth. What drove that? And how was the fourth quarter PPOP?
It suggests good control over operating expenses alongside the income growth. We'll touch on the cost-to-income ratio later. For the fourth quarter of financial year 2025, PPOP was 1,292 crore rupees, which is up a massive 99% year-over-year from 650 crore rupees in the fourth quarter of financial year 2024.
Okay, impressive PPOP figures. Now let's move down the line. What about profit before tax and the final profit after tax?
Right. For profit before tax, or PBT, we can look at the standalone statement figures they submitted. For the full financial year 2025, PBT was 2,788 crore rupees, showing a 34% increase year-over-year from 2,076 crore rupees. In the fourth quarter, PBT grew 24% year-over-year to 657 crore rupees. Notice the PBT growth is lower than the PPOP growth. This points towards higher provisions made during the year compared to the previous one.
That makes sense, especially in a post-merger scenario and potentially uncertain macro environment. And the bottom line, the profit after tax or PAT?
Looking at the merged view PAT from the press release, for the full financial year 2025, PAT was up 32% year-over-year at 2,106 crore rupees. This compares to 1,592 crore rupees in financial year 2024, before considering an exceptional item in that year.
Exceptional items. We'll circle back to that. And the fourth quarter PAT?
For the fourth quarter of financial year 2025, the merged PAT was 504 crore rupees, an 18% increase year-over-year compared to 428 crore rupees in the fourth quarter of financial year 2024, again, before exceptional items in the prior year quarter.
And how does this translate into earnings per share or EPS?
For the full financial year 2025, the merged EPS stood at 28 rupees, which is up 19% year-over-year.
Got it. You mentioned PPOP growth potentially benefiting from other income too. Was other income significant?
Yes, it was quite substantial. For the full financial year 2025, other income grew by 49% year-over-year to 2,526 crore rupees. For the fourth quarter, it was up 41% year-over-year at 761 crore rupees. This includes fees, commissions, treasury income, etc.
Okay, significant contributions there. Let's talk profitability ratios. How do ROA and ROE look on this merged basis?
The return on assets, or ROA, for financial year 2025 was 1.5%, and for the fourth quarter it was 1.4%. The return on equity, or ROE, stood at 13.1% for the full year and 11.9% for the fourth quarter. These seem relatively stable considering the scale change post-merger.
And net interest margin, or NIM? That's crucial for banks.
NIM improved. For the full financial year 2025, it was 5.94%, up from 5.45% in financial year 2024. For the fourth quarter, it stood at 5.8%. So they are earning better margins on their lending activities.
That's positive. And efficiency, the cost-to-income ratio?
Also improved significantly. The cost-to-income ratio for financial year 2025 came down to 57% from 64% in financial year 2024. For the fourth quarter alone, it was even better at 55%. This really helps explain that strong PPOP growth we saw earlier.
Low cost relative to income, that's definitely a good sign, especially during an integration period. Now, you mentioned exceptional items in financial year 2024.
Yes, the financial year 2024 results had an exceptional charge of about 57 crore rupees related to stamp duty and other transaction costs for the Fincare merger. Its absence in financial year 2025 makes the current year's profit look cleaner by comparison.
Okay, let's shift to the balance sheet. What are the key highlights there from the merged perspective? Deposits and loans.
As of March 31st, 2025, total deposits stood at 1,24,269 crore rupees. That's a solid 27% growth year-over-year compared to the opening merged balance sheet figures post-Fincare amalgamation.
And on the lending side?
The gross loan portfolio reached 1,15,704 crore rupees, registering a year-over-year growth of about 20%, again on merged financials. Interestingly, they noted that the unsecured loan book actually degrew by about 18%, while the secured businesses grew strongly by over 25% year-over-year.
A conscious de-risking perhaps on the unsecured side? What about the deposit mix and lending ratios?
The CASA ratio, current account savings account, stood at 29% at the end of March 2025. If you add retail term deposits, that goes up to 62% of total deposits, which is generally seen as a stable funding base. The credit deposit or CD ratio was at 79%, excluding advances created out of refinance from development finance institutions.
And capital adequacy? Always crucial for banks.
Very healthy. The capital adequacy ratio, or CRAR, stood at 20.1%, well above the regulatory requirement. Tier 1 capital was strong at 18.1%. They also bolstered this by raising 770 crore rupees of Tier 2 capital in March 2025. The bank's net worth reached 17,166 crore rupees.
Sounds well capitalized. Let's briefly touch upon cash flow and dividends. Any updates there?
The standalone cash flow statement shows positive net cash flow from operating activities of about 546 crore rupees for the year. On the dividend front, the board has recommended a dividend of 1 rupee per equity share, which is 10% of the face value, subject to shareholder approval.
Okay, now AU Bank operates across different segments. Can we get some insights into how treasury, retail, and wholesale banking performed based on their standalone filings?
Sure. Looking at the standalone segment results for financial year 2025, retail banking is clearly the dominant segment in terms of revenue, bringing in over 14,000 crore rupees. It also contributed the most to profit before tax, at about 1,674 crore rupees. It holds the largest chunk of assets too, around 92,838 crore rupees. Treasury operations generated about 2,565 crore rupees in revenue and 295 crore rupees in profit before tax. Wholesale banking contributed 1,643 crore rupees in revenue and about 470 crore rupees in profit before tax. Interestingly, on the liability side in the standalone picture, wholesale banking shows a larger figure than retail, likely reflecting borrowings and inter-segment allocations, while retail still holds the bulk of customer deposits.
So retail banking remains the core engine. How would you summarize the overall performance and the context provided by the management?
Overall, it looks like a strong performance in the first year post-merger. They've managed significant growth in both NII and PPOP, improved key profitability metrics like NIM and the cost-to-income ratio, maintained healthy capital adequacy, and saw an improvement in asset quality quarter-over-quarter. The management commentary acknowledges a challenging macro environment but emphasizes that the bank is well-positioned, focusing on sustainable growth and financial inclusion.
What about asset quality specifically? Any red flags there?
Actually, asset quality improved sequentially. The gross non-performing assets or GNPA ratio stood at 2.28% as of March 2025, down from 2.31% in the previous quarter. The net NPA ratio also improved to 0.74% from 0.91% in the third quarter. The provision coverage ratio, or PCR, including technical write-offs, is strong at 84%. They did make a specific contingency provision of 17 crore rupees on the microfinance portfolio acquired through the merger, which seems prudent.
To see that improvement, were there any other significant notes or events mentioned in the reports?
Yes, a few key things. The report details the Fincare merger accounting using the pooling of interest method and the share exchange ratio. It confirms the implementation of the new RBI guidelines on investment classification and valuation from April 1, 2024. They highlighted their strong credit ratings, AA+ stable for fixed deposits, AA stable for Tier 2 bonds, and A1+ for certificate of deposits. There's the appointment of Mr. Nand Kumar Saravade, a seasoned cybersecurity and banking expert, as a non-executive independent director. And of course, the dividend recommendation we already discussed. The press release also lists several awards and CSR initiatives undertaken during the year.
Okay, crucial question now. The auditor's report. Any qualifications or concerns raised by the auditors?
This is a very positive point for AU Small Finance Bank. The joint statutory auditors MSKA and Associates and Mukund M. Chitale and Company have issued an unmodified opinion on the standalone financial results for the year ended March 31, 2025. The bank explicitly provided a declaration confirming this unmodified opinion as required by regulations. So no qualifications, adverse remarks or emphasis of matter noted, which provides good assurance on the reported numbers.
That's a clean bill of health from the auditors, which is great to see. So what's the outlook based on these results?
The outlook appears cautiously optimistic. The bank has successfully navigated the first year of a major merger, showing strong growth and improved efficiency. Management seems confident, despite acknowledging global uncertainties. Key drivers will be continued momentum in secured lending, stable deposit growth, maintaining margins and realizing further synergies from the merger. Risks remain, of course. Potential macro headwinds impacting credit quality, intense competition in the banking sector, and ensuring smooth ongoing integration. And the standard disclaimer, this discussion is for informational purposes only. Please consult with a certified financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
Excellent summary. So to wrap it up,
AU Small Finance Bank delivered a strong financial year 2025, marked by significant growth driven by the Fincare merger integration. Key positives include robust NII and PPOP growth, improved NIM and cost efficiency, stable ROE, healthy capital levels, sequential improvement in asset quality, and very importantly, a clean, unmodified opinion from the auditors. While year-over-year comparisons need context due to the merger, the overall trajectory looks positive as they enter financial year 2026 as a larger integrated entity.
a very comprehensive analysis. Thanks for breaking that down for us.
My pleasure.
That's all for today's deep dive. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell if you found this helpful. We'll catch you in the next one.